Good morning, everybody, on this Thursday, the 26th day of September in the year of our Lord 2024. It's so good to see you. We finally got some rain in Ohio. I hope that where you're living, if you're in a drought, that you got some rain too. It was so good to have it. And we are now in the last weeks of September, in the last quarter of this year, 2024. And this is such an important year. Um, we have an election coming up. And I've been telling people to make sure you vote down the ballot, because no matter who you get into office, on the highest level, if you don't have the right people in the Senate and the House of Representatives, that person is not going to be able to get anything done. And you also need to make sure you get good people in on the state level. If you're not paying attention to what these people stand for, and you're just filling in the dots. Sometimes people vote just to fill in the dots. You're going to mess yourself up. You're going to mess us up. All of us have to vote up and down the ballot at this point because there's so much at stake. Irrationalism is running rampant. It's irrational. It's irrational bigotry. It's irrational greed. It's irrational everything. And these people are empowered. They have been emboldened by the people in office, from the executive branch to the judicial branch to the legislative branch. All these people who don't want America to be a pluralistic nation, who just kind of want it to be just like white people. That's what they want. Just let it be white people and it'll be fine. And that's not the way the world is. I remember when I was in college a very long time ago, one of my professors, she was a dear soul. Her name was Mary Jane Hewitt. I went to Occidental College. Her name was Mary Jane Hewitt, and she was the first person I ever heard say in one of our classes. I think she taught American Studies, and she said, "The world has more people of color than they do white people." And I remember being surprised, because in this country, what you see all the time, and what you saw back then is just white people every place. White people on the sitcoms, and white people on the dramas, and white people in the movies, and every once in a while there's somebody black in some other role. It was kind of demeaning, but what you saw was the white world, white world. And when people are have the majority, they get to be seen, and they get to make the narratives. I remember Mitch McConnell said that when you're in power, you get to shape the narrative. Well, we as people of color need to understand that we have power, and if we vote and if we get people in power who have our interests at heart, we do we do our part. We also get to uh, mess with the narrative that says that everything that's white is superior and everything that's black or brown is inferior. You know what kills me about this is that not only has that idea just taken root in America's soil as part of America's foundation, but Americans have spread that narrative all over the world, so that when immigrants come here from other countries, they come with a sense of superiority, and they come with this disdain of African Americans, and it just drives me crazy. But we have the power to change that. I remember seeing a story about a Vietnamese man. He could hardly speak English. The story said, I read it in a magazine someplace. He could hardly speak English, but these two brothers, these two African American men, were walking in a mall, and this guy comes walking and says, "You get off property. You get off property. You get off property." And the guys looked at him and said, "What are you talking about? You get off property. This is my property. It's a mall. It's a mall." Everybody's property, it's public. But what got to me about that was that this man, who obviously hadn't been here that long because he couldn't speak English, had the unmitigated gall to come to African American men and tell them to get off the property because they were trespassing. What are we talking about? So it's important to vote. I know a lot of young people don't want to vote at all. Please do. Please understand that we have to have so many ballots cast, so many, that the shenanigans that the Republicans, the MAGAs, are planning now will not work. They're already working to suppress the vote. And I don't care who you ought to be concerned about that, about voter suppression. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to preempt the election results so that they'll have people in power or in places or in positions who will be able to mess with the counting of the ballots and mess with the certification process. And you know what? We can't do that. We just can't. For 8 years, since the former president came down that daggone golden escalator, the nation has been just in tatters because of the racism and the sexism and the bigotry and the lying. And aren't you tired of that? I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. And whoever you may want in office eventually, the fact of the matter is that we don't get a certain person out of prevent a certain person from getting in office. What you want in terms of the person you want may never come to be, because he wants to be a dictator. He wants to be a dictator. He has said it, and you need to believe him. Oh my gosh, I can make people believe that and understand that. So you need to be uh, doing your part, registering people to vote, registering yourself. In Ohio, you can register online. If you can do that, you ought to do it, and don't wait until the last day to register to vote, which I think is October 6th or 7th, 8th. But don't wait until the very last day. Don't do that. Don't jeopardize your vote. Don't jeopardize and risk going to the polls and being told that you can't vote. If you are already registered, we're telling you to check your registration once a week to make sure you have not been purged, because that's what secretaries of state around the nation are doing. They are so desperate to win, and they are so desperate to be able to implement Planet 2020, Project 2025, so that they can have a type of control, an autocratic control over us, that they will do anything to make that happen. And so we have to be able and willing to do anything to make sure that that does not happen. I'm hoping that makes sense to you. So, and I know a lot of times when older people say, our ancestors died, younger people don't care. You need to care. I'm just saying, you need to care. You need to care, because the struggling that the people have done up to this point resulted in you being able to have some years of relative peace and freedom. You don't know what it's like to go through what those people went through. Now we don't know. We watch, and I'm just flabbergasted, disturbed by all the gun violence, because now younger people, their battles have to do around the guns, and just growing up with the constant threat of somebody coming into their classroom with an assault weapon and just shooting up. We didn't have to do that when I was in school. We had air raids and fire drills. We didn't have active shooter trainings. We didn't do that. So I get it that what we experienced, you're not experiencing. But what I am saying also is that if we don't get the right people in office, what you're experiencing now will magnify 100-fold. And because they want to put a police state in action, because they want to do that, you'll have fewer protection and fewer avenues to fight that injustice than you do right now. So we're in a very precarious time. I'm worried about young girls. I have a daughter, as I've said before, who's of childbearing age. I almost don't want her to get pregnant, because if she were to have a problem pregnancy, um, she might not make it. There's a story that I read this week about a young girl, African American girl. She had a miscarriage at home. The fetus came out of her while she was on the toilet. There was blood everywhere. She got scared. The fetus was still in the toilet. She called 911, or her boyfriend called 911, and they were trying to see, that the dispatcher said, we'll take the fetus out of the toilet. And they, trying to make it come back to make it come back. It was not yet dead, and they tried to make it come back to life, but they couldn't do it. So some months had passed, but she was accused of murder, put in jail, or threatened with jail time. And I think when the case went before the grand jury for an indictment, I think they just dismissed it. But how dare they put women in jail for having a miscarriage? Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, these are some crazy times. And I don't know what these guys are doing. What do they eat at home to make them have these kinds of ideas? That J.D. Vance says it's okay, and it should be the thing, that women who are being beaten should stay with their abusive husbands. No, the heck not. No, the hell not. No. That's been our story for so long. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that will go on. We have to work. Democracy is work. democracy is working. And we have to work to make sure we protect ourselves. Like Fannie Lou Hamer said, until all of us are free, none of us are free. And if some of us are being oppressed, that oppression is going to spill out over everybody else and everything else. You cannot live in an environment like that forever before it implodes. It implodes. It's a dream deferred. It implodes. It implodes because people will not be subjugated forever. They will eventually rise up because people yearn to be free and deserve to be free. So, again, check your registration. Vote.org is the site we've been giving, but you can go to vote411.org. There are a lot of different sites, I think, in different parts of the nation you can go to. You can go to your own state's Secretary of State page and check there. Check not only to see if you're registered, but check to see where your polling place is, because a lot of times, there have been in some states, they've shut down polling places that maybe people have gone to forever. And that's another thing you don't want. All of it is designed to dissuade you and discourage you from voting. So check it. Be proactive so that on election day, you won't have those types of situations to deal with. I vote early. I am encouraging as many people as possible to vote early. My Secretary of State in the state of Ohio, you kind of apply for an absentee ballot. You fill it out, you sign it, you put it in an envelope, and I always take it down to the Secretary of State office and put it in their hands, and then they will mail me a ballot. And I will fill it out, and I again will take it down to the Board of Election because I don't trust the mail system. I don't trust anything that's going on. So I put it in somebody's hand. That's what I do. So, but I vote early, and I encourage people to vote early because I'm sure the voter turnout is going to be huge, which it should be. But make sure you vote and make sure that you understand and say to yourself that until all of us are free, all of us are free, none of us are free. The United States is in a bad place because so many of us are not free because of the policies that have been made over the years, much of it based on racism and sexism and other types of bigotry. This nation cannot sustain itself living that way or being that way. So it's up to us. It's up to us. They want us to stay home. We got to say, hell to the no. Not doing it. Not staying home. You're not going to take my freedom away, and you're not going to jeopardize the lives of my children, my grandchildren, and all the children who are yet to come. You are not doing it. We are not going to turn into a nation where the executive, the unitary executive, which is what Project 2025 wants, where that person can order a police state, can form a police state, and the police officers can be even more out of control than they are now and can shoot or mow down protesters, taking away your right to protest. It is not going to happen. It cannot. And the only way it's not going to happen is if we vote. So I'm hoping that you will do that. And I don't know, so that we can all have a good Thanksgiving. Oh, Jesus. So good morning again. I'm Reverend Susan Smith, and I'm the author of the book Rest for the Justice-Seeking Soul. And we come here every Thursday morning to get a meditation for the week. And I always say that if you want to be on our list, you just email me at crazyfaith2019@gmail.com, and I will put your name on the list, and you will get a meditation every single Tuesday. I never miss a Tuesday, no matter where I am. I miss Thursdays sometimes because the places where I am, the hotel, sometimes I can't get the lighting right. But here, the Tuesday meditation, I don't care where I am, you always get it. So please, if you want to, again, email me at crazyfaith2019@gmail.com. And then the last thing I want to say is that we need for you to just kind of say a prayer. We lost a giant in the area of labor this week, Bill Lucy. Because of his work, many of us Black people have better lives. So just say a prayer of gratitude for the people like him who will come and just pave the way for us, and say a prayer of consolation for his family and friends who are just deeply bothered that he is gone. Okay, so today I'm reading the meditation that I sent out this past Tuesday, and it's called When the Ancestors Stir. And it reads, I have always felt like our ancestors come to us in a personal and powerful way at any given moment. It feels like they respond to our spirits and gather around us to remind us of their presence. They are like evergreen trees, ever present. I felt this truth when the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference held one of its conferences in Richmond, Virginia, some years ago. As part of our cultural immersion, we visited the site of the Lumpkin Slave Jail, and it was eerie walking that land. I found myself wondering what sounds would have been heard from that jail as human beings were taken and being sold like animals. I stood in the middle of the field adjacent to where the jail had been, feeling a gentle breeze, just standing there, feeling a gentle breeze, when suddenly I heard a wail. It's a wail. I can still hear it. I looked around to see one of the conference attendees kneeling in that field, hands outstretched and head lifted toward the heavens. And she wailed and she wailed and she wailed. And I got the distinct feeling that she and the ancestors, those who had been on that very same ground, were having a conversation. The moment was so powerful and sacred at the same time, so much so that I diverted my gaze. It was too private. It was like a private moment that I had intruded upon. I diverted my gaze and I walked away, tiptoeing, so as not to disturb the divine conversation that was going on. I have felt that stirring of the ancestors at different times. Once, when I stood in the pulpit of Abyssinian Baptist Church, where the Reverend Dr. Samuel Proctor preached and where Adam Clayton Powell preached. Once, when I spoke at a lecture hall at Oxford University at the very lectern where Indira Gandhi had once spoken, and once when I walked on the land damaged by Hurricane Katrina, as some of us went there to do what we could do to help. I have felt that stirring of ancestors when I have walked on farmland in the South, or even in the streets where Black people once lived and were bought and sold. I felt it when I visited the slave castle in Elmina, Ghana. The ancestors were there. They were there. They greeted us. There have been other times, all of them powerful. But the point is that I have learned that our ancestors stir to remind us of their connectedness to us, regardless of how long they've been gone. We can get real comfort when we stand where our ancestors have stood. We can almost hear their voices. We can sense their pain as we feel our own and be reassured that we are not alone. They remind us that we can endure more than we think we can and more than we want to endure. Let us hear their voices and their wails, but they also let us feel their spirits, that no injustice, no indignity, and no unfairness has ever been able to annihilate. I find the ever present connection comforting. I do. It helps me realize that we do not live in a vacuum and that no experience is unique. As they cried, we cry. As they struggled, we struggle. As they ached, we ache. And as they persevered, so we will persevere. The ground on which the ancestors walked, the fields in which they worked, and the platforms from which they stood or on which they stood as they were being sold are sacred. When I recently walked into the room in a building in Chicago where Count Basie, Duke Ellington, and Sarah Vaughan had once performed, I felt that same chill. As soon as I walked in, I could feel their spirits. They were stirring. They were stirring. It was like they were welcoming us, all of us who went in at that time, on that day, embracing us with their love and with their presence. And I'm telling you, it gave me chills. It was like we were close enough to them to hold their hands and for them to hold ours. The stirring of the ancestors allows us to get through difficult times. That stirring reminds us that trouble don't last always, and that even after we're gone, we're still around in the time of trouble. Their presence is a gift to us of calm, of the presence. It is an affirmation of the power and the presence of the Spirit, regardless of what is going on. Even in these difficult times, and troubling times, and challenging times, the ancestors are stirring. May we expect it, may we lean into it, and may we take that strength and the power that they offer us and do the work that we all must do in the work of justice. Amen and amen. So that is the reading for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you want to receive these meditations, email me at crazyfaith2019 at gmail.com. And I will make sure you have to send me your email address, and I will put your name and your email address on the list, and you will get one beginning next Tuesday. So, with that said, have a good day. If you haven't registered to vote, do. If you haven't talked to somebody about what's going on, do. If you haven't checked your registration, do. Let's do this, guys. Let's protect our freedom, and let's protect the work that the ancestors who are now stirring gave us to do.